You hand them $1, right? And they give you the candy bar. And the question is the candy bar worth $1?
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
I got a question from an individual by the name of PJ the other day over the email, and the question was, what type of compensation plans do you have for each of your tier employees? Well, PJ, that's kind of like asking what color of underwear I'm wearing. It's very private, very personal, but I am going to answer the question today. First, want to remind you, of course, we are sponsored by ANow Software. ANow is it's my management system. It's my software management. It's in the cloud. It allows me to keep track of every single appraisal and where I am as a business. Go to anow.com/coach for more information. One more time, it's anow.com/coach. Well, folks, I get asked on a regular basis for some very specific details as it refers to my business. And I'll be honest with you, most of that information I share with my dream team. I do share with my all-star team in the monthly newsletter. I don't often talk about those types of things over the podcast airwaves, but I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about compensation, because I think as a business owner, it's one of those items that you need to put a lot of effort and thought into, because you can go wrong in so many ways. Those of you who have taken my Go Create Some Value workshop, which by the way can be found on my website, just go to theappraisercoach.com, you will know that we spend more than one section. And when I say section, we're talking like an hour-long section talking about these things. And compensation is one of those things that, again, it can go wrong, but it can go right as well. Here's the key that I want you to keep in mind. This is the phrase. I know it's a phrase you hear a lot, but it's, I think, a good phrase. I think it's something that if you keep this in mind, you're going to be beneficial down the road. And that is the term win-win. Okay. And I sometimes say win-win-win, because to me, it's not enough to have a win-win, but you want to have a third win as well. But today we'll just talk about it in terms of win-win. And we're talking about in terms of the employer and the employee. Now, here's the problem that I see too often that business owners, the mistake that they make. The mistake that they make is that they want to get theirs. They want to get theirs in all ways, and even at the expense of their employee. In other words, if they think, okay, I'm going to get this individual and they're worth $15 an hour, but I'm going to get them for $13 an hour and I'm going to make it work. I'm telling you, folks, if that's your attitude, it's not going to last long term. Here's why. If it's a win for one side, it will never be a longevity thing. If it's a win for only one side, it will eventually fall apart. You've got to make it and set it up in such a way that both parties feel like they are benefited. Let me give you a quick example, not related to the law of delegation or, the human resource side of things, which is what we're talking today. Let's just talk in the marketplace. Years ago, I was asked by a very smart individual. He said, how much is a candy bar worth? And I said, well, I don't know. What's the price of it? Well, the price is $1. Okay, let's say a candy bar is worth $1, and let's say you've got a buyer and a seller. Okay, you've got the seller of the candy bar. They hold out their hand. Here's the candy bar. You hand them $1, right? And they give you the candy bar. And the question is the candy bar worth $1? And most people will say, yeah. I mean, he paid $1 for it, and he got it in return. But here's the point that you're missing: is the win-win. Right? Here's the thing. To that buyer, that candy bar was worth more than $1. Think about it. That candy bar was worth more than $1 because they were willing to reach in their pocket, pull out their wallet, pull out the dollar, and hand it to the individual in exchange for the candy bar. Think about the effort that is involved in that transaction. Now, if some of you are saying, effort, that's no big deal. Reach in your pocket, grab a dollar and slap it in somebody's hand. Yeah, but that's effort. And because there's effort, then you must feel like you're getting a better deal than what you're putting forth. Are you following me? In other words, if you give the dollar, you've got to, in your mind, in your heart, in your emotions, you need to say to yourself, I'm getting a better deal than I'm giving. right? That candy bar is worth more than $1 to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't make the transactions. Now, flip that around, and you've got the individual that has the candy bar and is giving the candy bar, and they are receiving the dollar in return. In their mind, they've got to feel like that dollar is worth more than the candy bar. Otherwise, there would be no exchange. Now, notice something. Both parties are exchanging, and both parties feel like they're getting benefit. Both parties feel like they are giving up less than they're returning or they're getting in return. Let that sink in for a little bit. And that's the way it is with all transactions. Now, there's sometimes that we feel ripped off. There's sometimes that for whatever reason, we're compelled to reach in our pocket and hand out money where, maybe we don't feel like it was such a great deal. But I'm telling you, that is not sustainable. If you continually feel like that, you continually feel like you're paying out more than you're receiving, it will not last. You'll find a way to change the arrangement. It is no different with human resources. You must, as an employer, feel like you are getting more than you're giving. If you're paying somebody $15 an hour, they better feel like $17, $20, $25 an hour to you. And on the flip side, an employee, if they are receiving $15 an hour, needs to feel like they are not putting in $15 an hour work. Now, I know that sounds counterproductive because it should be an exact exchange, but go back to the candy bar. Both parties have to feel like they are getting more out of the transaction than they are putting in. And in order for an employer-employee relationship to work, that has to be the case. Now, are there going to be some weeks that you feel like as an employer, you're giving out more in a paycheck than you're receiving? Absolutely. And vice versa. Are there going to be some weeks that the employee is going to feel like they received more or gave more than they received? Absolutely. But again, we're talking about longevity. We're talking about sustainability. There's going to be those short-term hiccups, but in the long term, both parties need to feel like it's a win for them. The employer needs to feel like they are getting more out of the transaction than they're putting in. The employee needs to feel like they are getting more out of the transaction than they are putting in long term. Now, it doesn't have to be a lot more. Again, not sustainable. It needs to be a little bit more. In other words, you have to find this balance. And I'm going to talk to you about how to find that balance in just a moment. First, I want to remind you about another balance. That is the ability to balance your technical side as an appraiser. Okay, the guy or gal that's out there inspecting and doing write-ups and choosing comps and taking comp photos and all of that. That's the technical side. And the other side, the business owner side, the individual who is looking at the overall picture, the vision. Where are we going as a company? Who do I need to hire? Who do I need to fire? How many reports are we doing this month compared to last month? How are we doing this year compared to last year? Are we spending too much time in the AMC world and not enough time in the private appraisal world? Those are questions that can be answered much more easily as you involve a little program called ANOW. ANOW software is the ability to manage each and every appraisal, technical side, and the business overall, again, the business side. ANOW is the software that I use in the cloud, so I can use it on my smartphone, I can use it on my tablet, I can use it on my laptop, I can use it on my desktop computer. I can Vox the office and say, hey, tell me how many appraisals we've done this year. And within a second, they can tell me. But I can do it right on my phone. ANOW is the opportunity to, at a glance, know exactly what my business is doing and where I need to go. Folks, if you've not tried ANOW, you need to reach out to them and check them out. Just go to anow.com/coach. That's anow.com/coach, and you will find out why it can and should be your total management system. anow.com/coach. All right, folks, we are talking today about compensation. Individual by the name of PJ reached out to me, and PJ said, what type of compensation plans do you have for each of your tier employees? And, I wrote back and I said, it's difficult for me to answer in a short time, but I did give PJ, I don't know if PJ is a female or a male, but I did give PJ a little bit of an answer. I want to go into some detail today, and I'm going to talk numbers, so hold on to your boots. But first of all, I wanted to lay the foundation with the principles. Again, you as an employer need to feel like it is a win to keep someone employed, and somebody is going to only stay around if they feel like it is a win as well. Short term, sure, we can have some hiccups. Short term, somebody can feel less than compensated, but in the long term, both parties need to find that balance. And it's just like any other commodity out there, right? You're only going to keep spending money when you feel like you're getting more value out of what you're putting into it, and vice versa. So let's talk a little bit about Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, right? We've talked about that here. Just again, briefly, Tier 1 is the very basics. Tier 1 is somebody that you could bring in from, say, a temp agency, and within 2 weeks, you could have them doing their job fairly well. That's the definition of Tier 1. Answering phones, answering emails, taking notes, data entry, those types of things are Tier 1. Pretty much anybody with a brain and a pulse can do it, right? Tier 2 is the step above. Tier 2 is more appraiser centric. It's more into the professional, the technical side, understanding what a plat map is, understanding what an aerial map does for us, understanding how to crunch numbers, understanding how to sketch a property. By the way, I put the inspection, even though that's normally done by a Tier 3 employee, I do put inspection under the Tier 2 definition. It doesn't take a whole lot of, what we call analysis to do an inspection. That's just data gathering, right? That's Tier 2. And Tier 3, of course, is the analysis side. That's more the appraiser side of things. Yes, you could have a trainee doing Tier 3 stuff if you have trained them and trust them, right? And you give credit where credit is due. Another topic for another time. But that kind of lays it out. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 1, very basic. Tier 2, if you've been around 6 months in an appraisal office, you could probably start to do and dip your toe into the world of Tier 2. And Tier 3, you got to be around a couple years, and you're talking more analysis, choosing comps, making adjustments, reconciliation, market studies, those types of things, regression analysis. That's all Tier 3 type of things. So here's the thing. This is what I do in my office as far as pay goes. What I do is I typically find what the going rate is for those types of tiers, and I pay them a little bit more. Okay, let me repeat that. I reach out to, say, the labor department or the temp agencies, and I ask them, what is the typical pay right now for a data entry clerk in this area? And they will tell you. And typically they actually have a printout that they will give you. Okay. So basic data entry, basic receptionist duties. Okay. These are Tier 1 things. What is the typical pay for that person? And then I pay them a little more, which I'm going to return to in just a little bit. Then I find out, if you have a little technical expertise, you've been around a company for a while, you've got some longevity. In other words, we're now verging into the Tier 2 area. Once we get into Tier 2, how much is that in this area typically? And then I pay them a little bit more. And then, of course, Tier 3 is a whole different animal because it takes some education, some experience, some expertise. And I do Tier 3 based on a couple of different things that I'm going to return to. So in the state of Idaho, we are very, we're low income. We're low cost of living. And so I can tell you that basic data entry in my area is minimum wage. And in our area, minimum wage is, I think, $7.25, $7.50 an hour, right? That's in Idaho. I know that's not the rest of the country, but I'm telling you that's in Idaho. So I can get a really good data entry clerk for around $8, $9 an hour. Okay. I typically start my data entry Tier 1 people at about $9 an hour, maybe $8.50 an hour for the first 90 days. It's kind of a trial period. And then we move up to there. Most of my Tier 1 employees that have been around a significant amount of time, over a year, maybe over 2 years, are making anywhere from $10 to $14 an hour. Okay. That's Tier 1. Tier 2, again, more expertise, more into the technical side, the understanding of what a zoning classification means, those types of things where they can start to do a little bit, not analysis, but a little bit of speaking the language and understanding what it is that an appraiser does. In my area, that typically runs anywhere from about $10 to $12 an hour average. And I pay my Tier 2 individuals anywhere from about, $11 to $15, maybe $16 an hour. Okay. That's my Tier 2 level. And then Tier 3, we're talking $20, $40 an hour or commission. Again, that still breaks down to per hour, but that's typically the area that we're in. These are people who have been around 2-3 years, might be a trainee, might actually be an appraiser, and it's a whole different ballgame as far as that goes. But the principle that I want to clarify today and help to answer for PJ is that I find what typical employees doing the similar type of work are making in my area, and I pay them a little bit more. Why a little bit more? Why a little bit more? Again, this goes back to the principle that we talked about earlier, the win-win, right? I want my employees to feel like they are making more money than they could somewhere else. Now, that's impossible, first of all, to do it 100% because you can always find a different job, right? But it's not just about the compensation to me. It's about the type of company that you're working for. It's about the enjoyment. It's about the flexibility. I had an individual, one of my tier 2 employees, reach out to me just this morning and say, I've got a sick child. Can I work from home today? And I did not hesitate. I said, yes, because we are set up to do that. I'm telling you, there's not a lot of jobs that that individual could find that have that same flexibility. And I think that goes for a lot as well. I think that counts for a lot. The point is this: I don't want my employees constantly looking over their shoulder for something better, right? I want them to feel that every day they are being compensated fully and completely for what they are doing. So in your area, I know some of the numbers I've thrown out today, you're like, are you serious? Right? $12 to $16 an hour for tier 2. In our area, it's 20 to 30. It may be. Again, different costs of living work different for other places. So it's about principles, okay? And when I wrote back to PJ, I indicated that it's about principles because your area may be different than mine. But what you need to do is find out what typical tier 1, tier 2 people are being paid in your area and pay them a little bit more. Make their life comfortable. Make it a win for them, but not so much that it's not a win for you. You've got to find that happy balance. And as you do, I think that you will have more longevity and you will have a better relationship between you and your employees. Speaking about relationships between you and your employees, I mentioned earlier about the Go Create Some Value workshop. Folks, that is really the foundation of what I do as the appraiser coach. I get people coming to me often and they say, Dustin, I just need the basics. Like what is it that happens in your office, right? What do you pay people? How do you find people? How do you hire people? How do you fire people? How do you manage people? How do you do 4 times the volume that most of your appraiser peers are doing? Go Create Some Value workshop. That's how you figure those things out. I am very, very open. You'll find probably reveal too much in that webinar. It's about 10 hours, folks. It's about 10 hours of instruction, video, supplemental materials. It is a course on how to transform your appraisal office. I hope you'll check it out. Use the coupon code podcast, and you get a pretty significant discount. I can't remember what it is for sure, dollars and cents wise, but a pretty significant discount at checkout when you use the coupon code podcast. Again, go to theappraisercoach.com, check out the Go Create Some Value workshop, use the coupon code podcast for a significant discount. Thank you for joining me, folks. Catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.